It's been 2 years in the making, but today, California's first in the nation Reparations Task Force held their final meeting and submitted their official report for state lawmakers to consider and turn into policy. The 1,100-page report recommends more than 100 programs and policies, including compensation to address 12 areas of harm caused by slavery, from housing discrimination to an unjust legal system. The report also calls for a formal apology to the descendants of the enslaved and the creation of a cabinet-level position to oversee the implementation of the recommendations. Reggie Jones-Sawyer represents L.A. in the State Assembly. He is one of 9 individuals appointed to the Reparations Task Force, and he joins us now with more on this historic day. Assemblyman, great to see you.
Good afternoon. Good to see you.
What is the main takeaway from today's final report? What, in your view, should be done when it comes to reparations?
I think first, acknowledgement that California was complicit in what the harms were to African Americans here in California and the enslavement of not only African Americans, but the aftermath of it, whether it's in housing, whether it's segregation, whether it's even in education and our inability to move through the educational system, the fact that we're incarcerated more than anyone else. It really details in that 1,100-page report, probably the most detailed account of the wrongs that have gone on in California that you'll ever read. And in fact, I think it's going to the Library of Congress because it's that comprehensive and that revealing of how complicit California has been when it comes to keeping African Americans down here in the state.
You know the critics who say that California was not a slave state, no one alive today ever owned slaves, and that we don't really have the money for all of this. Economists estimate it could cost $800 billion. What do you say to people that say, this isn't fair, I shouldn't have to pay for this?
If you read the report, you will learn that the atrocities that went on in the South were carried here. We had people here in California that would take runaway slaves from here and take them back to the South. There were governors who refused African Americans the ability to intermarry. We were subject to the same things that were happening in the South as were happening here. So when you read the report, when you see all the injustices that went on here in California, there's absolutely no way you could even think of that. And what I tell people is, you need to read. Once you read the report, you'll understand what was going on. Not only is it documented, but there's endnotes and bibliography that justifies why California was responsible for a lot of atrocities here in this state.
Meanwhile, other news today, which is sort of related, the Supreme Court saying that affirmative action is basically outlawed now in admissions decisions for colleges. That was already true for state colleges here in California, not for private colleges. Your brief reaction to that?
My family, my uncle was one of the Little Rock Nine when 9 kids integrated Central High School in 1957. The governor of that state stood in front of the schoolhouse to deny him access to an all-white school. Thurgood Marshall helped with Brown versus Board of Education, who was able to remove that roadblock. Both of them have passed on. Both of them got to be spinning in their graves right now at what the Supreme Court is doing right now. And we need to continue the fight, because the fight that they did back in the 50s and the 60s so that I could go to any school that I wanted, we need to continue that fight. This is a perfect example of how the fight has not ended. In fact, it's been ramped up even more so that we need to push back on those who are trying to keep us back into the back of the bus, back into the schoolhouse, and to unequal education. We need to really look at it and really comprehensively look at what we're doing with reparations and come up with some solutions, because we have already dealt with 209. So we know how to deal with it now. We need to move on and teach the rest of the country to overturn or to get around what is going on with the Supreme Court.
Yeah, and Prop 209, for people that may not know, that's what outlawed affirmative action at places like UCLA and UC Berkeley years ago here in California. Assemblyman Reggie Jones-Sawyer, thank you so much for sharing your perspective. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, Alex, for having me on.